Travel to the land of Israel. Be prepared to laugh, cry, sing, dance, and be inspired like never before. Join our community trip to the land of Israel, March 2019, together with our community and led by our Rebbitzin, Chesh, and Rabbi Levi Mintz. Now is the time to touch, feel, and explore the land of our forefathers. Join this unique trip of a lifetime today at jewishforsyth.org/Israel trip.
The 6 days of warfare in 1967 between Israel and its Arab neighbors are legendary for the staggering speed and fury of Israel's military victory. But the dreadful days of rage and trepidation leading to the outbreak of hostilities were no less dramatic. May 28, 1967, was a day of three pivotal speeches. In Cairo, Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser held an international press conference. In Tel Aviv, Israeli Prime Minister Eshkol spoke to the people of Israel. And in New York, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, addressed world Jewry. Before hundreds of the world's press, Nasser unabashedly broadcast Egypt's intentions. The existence of Israel is in itself an aggression. We will not accept any coexistence with Israel. The war with Israel is in effect since 1948. This was not an empty threat. Egypt, Syria, and Jordan were mobilizing vast armies on Israel's border and broadcasting the same intentions. On the same day, Prime Minister Eshkol delivered a message over the waves of Israel's national radio station Kol Yisrael. While Nasser had spent weeks rallying the Middle East to a combined military onslaught against an isolated Israel, Eshkol had maintained an ominous silence since the start of the crisis. He now decided to reassure the jittery public that the IDF was adequately prepared to defend itself and that Israel was navigating a diplomatic resolution through international channels. Neither was fully true. The military intelligence and civilian leaderships all predicted impending disaster. The Israeli public was already bracing itself for the most horrifying possibilities. An Israeli colonel wrote, "With his stuttering, he conveyed more insecurity and confusion. I heard that soldiers at the front burst out crying." An already alarmed Israel was thrown into panic. That same day, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, head of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, and a revered spiritual leader of world Jewry, delivered a public address that was broadcast around the globe, including a simultaneous translation from Yiddish to Hebrew on Israel's Kol Yisrael radio station that Eshkol had used only hours earlier. Brooklyn, New York. The Rebbe personally addressed the rally, but his forceful prediction took the world by surprise.
Was eure Brüder und Schwestern, was gefühlen sich in Eretz HaKodesh in Eretz Israel, stehen nicht in einem Lager, wo der Rebbe beschützt sie und schickt sie seine Brüche und Atzloche und Yeshua in ein vergrößerter Most, gedei sie sollen nach Riss kommen und sie wollen nach Riss kommen, von dem ichtigen Maße mit Atzloche.
Yediot Achronot, an Israeli daily. The prediction seemed so utterly at odds with that of Israel's own leadership and the grim reality growing ever more dense around Israel's borders, just 8 days shy of the Six-Day War.
A biblical prophecy comes to pass as the forces of Israel sweep on in an astonishing triumph of strategy. After achieving air supremacy, her forces thrust like an avenging sword at the very heart of Arab self-confidence. In
And then, perhaps, the greatest miracle of all, a miracle Israel never expected: Jerusalem. Again, it seemed as though it was a divine appointment in time. Jerusalem was to be restored to the Jewish people after 2,000 years. The enemies of Israel had twice as many soldiers as we did, 3 times as many planes, 4 times as many tanks. The odds were stacked against us on every military front. The love of Israel, self-sacrifice, and courage of the Israeli soldiers, combined with divine guidance and assistance, made these miracles possible.